There is a particular kind of ambition that does not announce itself. Not the loud, forward-tilting, room-commanding ambition of people who need the world to see them wanting, but the quiet, systematic, endlessly patient ambition of someone who has identified exactly what she wants, has assessed exactly what stands between her and it, and has begun, without drama or announcement, to remove each obstacle with the methodical attention of a person who understands that the work is long and that spectacle is a distraction from the work. This ambition is rarer than the loud version. It is also more effective. And it is the variety that Norma Shearer possessed from the beginning and exercised until the end, with a consistency that the Hollywood she inhabited found alternately impressive and maddening. She was the first lady of the screen. She earned the title. She also arranged the conditions under which earning it was possible, which is either the definition of ambition or the definition of intelligence, depending on how you feel about the relationship between the two. Edith Norma Shearer was born on August 10, 1902, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, the second of 3 children of a building contractor who fell on hard times, and a mother who recognized in her daughter the kind of beauty that could be turned into something if properly directed. The beauty was real, but it was not the uncomplicated variety. Norma had a slight cast in one eye, a condition she would spend years learning to manage through the specific technical knowledge of how a camera, placed at the right angle in the right light, could make invisible the thing that was visible to the naked eye in ordinary space. She learned to manage it. She managed it so completely that audiences watching her films had no idea the management was occurring, which is the most complete form of mastery available. The mastery that hides itself entirely. She arrived in New York with her mother in the early 1920s, making the journey that ambitious girls from elsewhere made when the elsewhere was not large enough for what they intended to become. She worked as a model and made her way into films, making the transition to Hollywood through the silent film circuit and arriving at MGM in the mid-1920s with the specific combination of quality and persistence that Louis B. Mayer recognized as the raw material of a star. She was not, in these early years, a star. She was a capable, disciplined, hard-working young actress who was building the foundation on which everything else would eventually be placed. She met Irving Thalberg in 1927. The meeting was professional before it was personal. Thalberg was the head of production at MGM, the boy wonder of the studio system, a man of extraordinary intelligence and taste who had built MGM into the most prestigious studio in Hollywood, and who understood, in a way that the industry around him had not yet fully articulated, that the quality of a film was determined before the cameras rolled, and that the production process was where the art was either protected or destroyed. Shearer and Thalberg married in 1927, and the marriage was, by every account that takes the trouble to look at it honestly, a genuine partnership, one of shared intelligence and shared ambition and shared aesthetic judgment, conducted in a world that was always looking for the easier explanation that her success was his gift to her. The easier explanation was wrong. Her talent was her own. Her discipline was her own. Her understanding of the camera, of the angles and the lighting, and the technical conditions under which her specific face and figure were most effectively presented, was the product of years of her own study and her own experimentation, conducted with the thoroughness of someone who has decided that the instrument she is working with is herself, and that the instrument deserves the same rigorous attention that any other craftsman brings to their tools. She knew what she was doing. She had always known what she was doing. Thalberg's influence opened certain doors, and she walked through them with her own feet. The pre-code years were her kingdom, between 1929 and 1934, before the full enforcement of the production code transformed Hollywood's moral landscape into the carefully managed terrain of officially approved virtue. Norma Shearer played women who lived by their own rules, who had affairs, who divorced, who pursued pleasure and love and independence with a frankness that the post-code era would make unavailable for decades. The Divorcee in 1930, for which she won the Academy Award for Best Actress, A Free Soul in 1931, Private Lives in 1931, Riptide in 1934. Films in which she wore clothes that the costume department had not yet been required to make appropriate, and in which she performed intimate scenes that had not yet been required to imply rather than show, and in which the women she played had interiority and desire, and the specific, unashamed freedom of characters written and filmed in the window between the silent era's conventions and the code's restrictions. She was nominated for the Academy Award 5 times in 9 years. For Their Own Desire in 1929, for The Divorcee in 1930, which she won, for A Free Soul in 1931, for The Barretts of Wimpole Street in 1934, and for Romeo and Juliet in 1936. The breadth of the roles across those nominations is the proof that the range was real, from modern comedy to classical Shakespeare, from the frankly sensual to the romantically literary, from the woman of the world to the Victorian poet. And the consistency of the recognition across that breadth is the proof that the talent matched the ambition in the way that it does not always match. Thalberg died in 1936, at 37 years old, of pneumonia, and the death altered everything. Not because Norma Shearer's career had been dependent on his position. The position had helped, and she was honest about the help. But the talent was independent of it, and continued to function after it was removed. It altered everything, because the person she had built the Hollywood life with was gone. And the Hollywood life without the person was a different proposition than the Hollywood life with him. She made Marie Antoinette in 1938, the large prestige picture that Thalberg had been planning before his death and that she completed as a form of tribute, and it gave her her 5th Oscar nomination and demonstrated that the range had not contracted in the years of grief. She retired in 1942 at 40 years old, after Her Cardboard Lover, a film that she found unsatisfying and that she used as the evidence for a decision she had perhaps already made. She was the first lady of the screen, and she left the screen when she chose to leave it, which is the prerogative of someone who had always understood that the career was hers to manage and not the other way around. She did not disappear. She remained in the world, living the social and charitable life of a woman of means and reputation in post-war California. She discovered Janet Leigh, seeing a photograph of the young actress in a ski lodge, recognizing something in the image that was worth pursuing, and making the calls that resulted in an MGM contract for a woman who had not yet established herself. The discovery was not sentimental. It was the eye of a professional who had spent 20 years learning to see what the camera would find valuable, applied now to the photograph rather than the frame. She died on June 12, 1983, in Woodland Hills, California, at the age of 80, having outlived Thalberg by nearly 5 decades, and having spent those decades in the specific, dignified visibility of a woman who had achieved what she had set out to achieve, and who had no need to perform anything further. She was the first lady of the screen because she decided to be. She 5 times proved to the Academy that the decision was correct. She retired when she chose. She discovered a star on her way out. The discipline was not a performance, it was a life. And the life, from the cross-eyed girl from Montreal to the queen of the most glamorous studio in Hollywood history, was the greatest role she ever played.